Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is JGOD. In today's video, we're going to talk about the top 5 weapons currently within Call of Duty Cold War, and then I also wanted to give you class setups for them. Unfortunately, it does take quite a while to level up these weapons, and there's no real special trick. You kind of just get score per kill, which really makes it so you can't get it much faster because it doesn't really work the same way that normal XP works. You got to get gun kills, streak kills don't count. So these are the weapons you should probably level up first. Most of them will probably receive a nerf at some point just to kind of balance them out, because once you get rid of these top 5 weapons, the vast majority of weapons are fairly balanced. So we're going to talk through all the top 5 weapons with loadouts and explain why they are the top weapons. Enjoy the video, learn something new. Please do me a favor, hit that like button. Goal in today's video is 1,500 likes, and if you're brand new looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. And even if you're not really a fan of multiplayer, this stuff is still pretty important, especially as Cold War integrates with Warzone in less than a month. So basically, these are all the weapon stats that are in game, and what I did in here is I converted it so you can get the number of shots to kill at the closest ranges, and then go ahead and look at the TTK. For the weapons that we're including in today's video, I've already gone through and got the various distances. Obviously, it's a spreadsheet. Not everyone's into that, so I'm going to breeze through this part. But overall, what you can see here is the XM4 is 332. Pretty good. AK-47 at 300. That's going to be the fastest rifle out of these 5 rifles. 368 with the Krieg. A lot of people are liking that one just because it's laser accurate, but with the right attachments, all these guns are pretty accurate. The QBZ is 352, right in line. Then we have the FAMAS, which is called the FFAR-1, and that's 330. And you can see there's a little bit of an outlier here. This AK-47 is just a little bit too strong, so obviously that's going to make it into the list. Same thing here. We got the MP5 280, the Milano 313, so that's pretty solid there. 358 for the AK-74U, and then we have the KSP-45, which is drastically low just because it's a burst, but odds are it's going to require multiple bursts, so it's going to be right around 325-ish, 350, somewhere in that range. So we're looking at TTKs. The AK-74U is insane, and we're already asking them to nerf the MP5, so these ones should be right around 300, and these 330 up close. So there's a little bit of balance going on, but that's kind of how we figure out what ends up being broken. And obviously that's just the TTK, so that's important. Then when you get into the game, the handling. The good thing about these weapons is as you level them up, you can do the attachments that you want to make the guns fit your individual playstyle. So if you want to play a little bit faster, if you're playing the larger scale combined arms, if you're playing 6v6, if you're only playing S&D or even hardcore, you can kind of load up the class setup to make it fit your needs. But the overall base stats of the weapon are the base stats, and those will dictate kind of where they sit. Base stats alone, you could have already predicted which weapons were going to be the top weapons, and it's already those weapons. Obviously, that's just data. We're going to go ahead and look at a little bit more of a visual representation of this in the form of a graph. So right here, we have a graph of those times to kill, and I have the various damage drop-offs, which is particularly important, because obviously looking at just the first range makes a lot of SMGs look overpowered, especially as you get a little bit further out. So right here, what we'll do is look at this MP5. You can see the MP5 is good. It's always been good. Even in Modern Warfare, it's been good. In previous Call of Duties, it's still been a pretty solid contender. And you can see where it kind of sits among these fully automatic weapons. These are burst weapons, so they're obviously going to have a little bit of difference there. But we can see kind of how they compete. And then it drops off right around 12.5 meters. This is without any attachments. And then it's still pretty competitive at 350 milliseconds. So even up to 20 meters, it's going to have a faster time to kill than a majority of those rifles. And you start mixing in headshots, it gets a little bit out of hand pretty quickly. And even when it drops off again right around 22 meters, we can see that it's right around 425. And this is where it's a little bit less competitive. But if you're a smart player or a good player, the vast majority of your gunfights will be within 25 meters. So that's just how it's going to happen based off map design. Only way it doesn't is if you're a fool and just run out into the sand dunes with an SMG on satellite. It's just not practical. Vast majority, it's going to be practical time to kills with going to be within that 22-ish meters. We can also see here, we have the AK-74U, which is kind of in line with the MP5. It's not necessarily better or worse. It does have a really fast melty time to kill up close. It does have a little bit drop off a little bit sooner, but you can see that it's still very competitive. A couple meters short, right around 18 meters, and then it drops off, and then it's pretty much in line with the MP5. So it's as good as the MP5 range, even though this is where you would primarily be using it within about that 20-ish, 22, 18 meter range in this particular case. So you get the good time to kill, unless you're using attachments that's going to modify that. Then we have the AK-47, which has a 300 millisecond time to kill, which we show is faster than those other rifles that we saw. And this is what makes it so good, is it's going to be able to have that same sustained time to kill from about 12 meters all the way up to around 38 meters. It is the king in terms of time to kill against all these rifles. It's not gonna be beat. It's already better than the rifles within this close range, so it dominates this range as well. You stack on some, range attachments, it's generally going to have the same time to kill when you start stacking those type of attachments. Then we have the two burst weapons. The problem with the burst weapons is this consistency in the one burst kills is nuts. I was able to test things around with the M16. I was able to get one burst kills up to about 38 meters with the class setup that we're going to talk about. Obviously, the base one's only going to get it up to about 25. You mix in a headshot, you can get it a much further. But being able to get one burst kills up to about 35, 38 meters is insane. So we can see this green line. It's also with the AUG. Even though this is the theoretical time to kill, in practice, it's very difficult. Right around 33-ish meters, that's where the one burst, you could get it, but it's very inconsistent. Maybe get it 1 out of 5 times. So it's not very practical to count this. I would say that this drops off significantly sooner. Even if you swap out attachments, do all kinds of other combinations, you're realistically only going to get a consistent time to kill right up to about 30 meters. And that's why in this case, I think the M16 edges out the AUG for consistency. As far as overall movement and stuff like that, you're going to have a little bit more advantage with the AUG. But let's go ahead and look at some class setups. So in terms of class setups, like I said, no particular order, but the reason we just looked at the graph is because I wanted to show that maybe my number one pick is going to be the AK-47. I think after some time settles and people get enough attachments and they get a little bit more familiar with the game, I think the AK-47 is going to be the one that rises up. I think a lot of people are kind of leaning towards the MP5 just because most of the maps are close quarters. And then the burst weapons like the AUG and the M16 are just too dominant and for the maps. Most of the ranges you're going to be within those 25, 30 meters. So a lot of times you're just going to get one bursted and there's no outplay potential, especially when you increase the health to 150. Most of the weapons time to kill increases, but to still have the ability to one burst, there's got to be things they can do with it where it's a little bit more inconsistent, or the range is reduced, or the burst delay is longer. There's different things they can do to balance it because they've had balanced burst weapons in the past. So let's go ahead and look at it in through here. So if we go ahead and look over here, we can see the details of the weapon. And one of the most important stats in this game, which we're going to see in probably a later video that I'm working on, is bullet velocity. One of the reasons where your connectivity, as far as it doesn't feel like your bullets are connecting or you have bad bullet registration, is because the vast majority of weapons in this game have the bullet velocity of the Fennec. And if you played Modern Warfare, you know the Fennec had a terrible bullet velocity, which it almost felt like you couldn't even hit shots. And that's kind of what's happening here. So you do have to value bullet velocity, and that's kind of how they balance these attachments, because when I was building these classes, I was like finding it a little bit of a struggle to figure out, well, how the heck do I exactly want to do this? Because I need the bullet velocity even more than it mattered in Modern Warfare, but I also don't want to nerf the range too much. So you kind of pick and choose. For this one, I went with the agency suppressor because you're going to get the concealment, which is nice, the vertical bullet recoil, and then you get the effective damage range minus 25%, which sounds like a big deal initially, but you'll see kind of how we've countered these things. So we also have this one here, which is the reinforced heavy barrel. We're going to increase that effective range, so the net negative is only about 7%. And then the bullet velocity is coming in clutch, so we keep that bullet velocity and it shoots up to 450 versus 225 or something like that. So as a result, we also lose a little bit of aim walking movement speed. That's just strafing, and then sprint movement speed, but we're going to take care of those as well. Obviously, you could stack on to have an 8 attachment setup where maybe you include an optic, but this is the class setup I would recommend. Foregrip, this offers the best benefit without any drawbacks. Almost all these other ones are going to offer some kind of drawback, or they're just not all that helpful. So I think the standard foregrip's good. You could go with this one here, but then you're going to end up having less movement speed, worse strafing speed, which we already accounted for. So I think this one is the overall best attachment for it. And then we have the different attachments here. The real difference is what mode you're going to be playing in. You can see right here that the aim down sight speed is 261 milliseconds, which is still okay. It's not like fast by any means. If you really wanted to go over the top, you could always go with like the 40 round mag. Like you can see, you're going to get 10 less bullets, but the ADS speed is going to be 192. So if you want to just make it feel a lot faster, you're just going to have to worry about that reload speed. So this will make it feel incredibly fast. When you're talking about 60 milliseconds, it's like 4 or 5 frames at 60 FPS. Obviously, some people are above that. So there'd just be more frames to however the math works. And then we also have the handle here, which this bottom one is absurd. This one is what's helping the aim down sight speed. Flinch resistant. So when you get in a gunfight, even if you hit the first shot, you're not flinching or anything like that. You're able to stay on target with your shots. This will hurt your sprint to fire speed, which is okay because it's generally faster than what it shows in game. And then we also have the shoot movement speed, which is okay. When you're firing, you'll slow down just a little bit, but overall you're getting a huge benefit. And then you're also able to drop shot, which is like the all-around best clutch setup for this MP5. And I think once you unlock these attachments, you'll be able to feel that difference. AK-47, I like an optic on it. You can choose whatever optic since they don't really affect anything other than your optical zoom. I personally like this optic here. I think it's the cleanest. If I'm not going to use one of those, then I'm going to go with a 137X. So it's just a matter of preference, though. You get kind of used to it. This is going to be a little bit odd. I'm not going to run a suppressor because this one probably would benefit significantly from having 8 attachments so you could stack stuff. But the barrel I would use is for this effective damage range. So you're essentially doubling that up to 76. So you're always going to get the same number of shots to kill for the vast majority of your gunfights. And then the bullet velocity is increased because without that attachment, it's 490, which basically MP5 bullet velocity, which it's max attachments. We don't want that. We're going to bump that up to about 700, which is going to be a noticeable difference, as you guys will see in that later video when I break that part down. Again, underbarrel, same thing. This is probably going to be the most underbarrel that people go with, unless, you know, you're doing 8 attachments. Then you can offset some things and kind of balance it out. Magazine, I went with the 50 round. Obviously, we're getting a little bit of drawback there, but we're going to be able to counter that with this particular one right here, which is going to be the best one in my opinion. It's like they're kind of narrowing us down to those specific areas. And even with this, you get 255 millisecond aim down sight, which is very fast and very competitive for the vast majority of the weapons in the game. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next one. So we have these 2 weapons here. AK-74U, this is obviously the SMG version, so it's going to treat it like an SMG. Muscle, we don't need an optic this time because most of our engagements can be a lot closer. We do put on a suppressor. This one helps with the muzzle flash concealment and vertical recoil. Obviously, we're taking a little hit on the damage, which is okay because the damage range is fairly short, so it's not a huge con there. But then we counter that with this one, the effective damage range, same thing we did. So you're only losing about 7%, which is not a lot, but you're still getting that bullet velocity. And in this particular case, it ends up being 900 meters per second. So those bullets connect a lot faster than you're going to see with the MP5. So at range, it'll be easier to hit your shot, even if you're comfortable with the iron sights. Obviously, you need an optic. Maybe 8 attachments is the way to go for you. Underbarrel, same thing, foregrip. Magazine, same thing here. You could either go this route and it'll feel like a rifle a little bit, or you can go with this one and then you end up with, you know, an ADS speed right around 210, which is still faster than the rifle that we just looked at, but right in line with the MP5. So it's really a matter of preference. Just 40 bullets, it might not be enough in some scenarios depending on how fast you play. So there's the trade-off there. And then obviously this handle is just the grossest handle there is. For all these benefits it allows to be able to get you. That gives us to the M16. And the M16, I've taken a little bit different approach too. You can put on whatever optic you want. Like I said, I go with the 1.375. And then I have a barrel. And this barrel right here does the damage, the effective range, and the bullet velocity. And this is going to differ from the AUG. I tried it with both. And this one actually allowed you to get more consistent one burst kills up to about 37, 36 meters. Versus if you didn't have this, normally it's only going to be up to about 25 meters. Because of how tight the burst is on this thing, this is the nastiest thing. And look at right here, 1100 meters per second. You get 38 meter range, which kind of is in line there. You get the extra damage. Obviously, it's hurting the recoil or whatever, but the bullets stay tight and the recoil is still very manageable. We'll go ahead and go over here. The underbarrel. This one, I ended up going with this one to kind of counteract the other recoil stuff that's going on with that attachment. So that's kind of how it balances out. You could go with this one if you wanted to kind of tighten that up because it doesn't have as many negatives. So those are kind of the trade-offs. This one's going to help 10% and then 40% side to side. You want it to be as tight as possible so that if you hit center mass, the bullets only go up. If you go vertical, then the bullets could have a little bit of side-to-side action, but they're going to stay pretty straight. So you could try both, see which one works better for you. The front grip's going to be good just because you unlock it earlier, and then you could try the Field Agent foregrip a little bit later on. Handle, for same reason, you're going to get the aim down sight speed, flinch resistance. Since this bullet's like burst, one burst, the majority of the time, or even two bursts, I don't think you really need an extended mag. For that reason, I decided to equip in a stock. And this stock is shoot movement speed, so that's extra strafing speed, along with when you're firing, so you can actually make yourself a lot harder to hit. Right here, it has 78% walking speed, and then hip fire is a little bit worse. But you generally shouldn't be hip firing unless it's like panic hip fire, right? So way you should position yourself, you're going to get a lot faster movement. It's going to feel closer to an SMG, which usually sits around 6.5 as far as that strafing speed. Then that brings us to the last one, which is the AUG. And the AUG is very in line with it. I think it's just broken because it has that one burst. I think if they get a little bit nerfed in the right direction, they'll be balanced along with the rest of the weapons that are currently in the game. And you would see it very balanced Call of Duty, which would be nice. Same thing, optic, barrel. I ended up going with the rapid fire because this task force, I noticed that it did not help in getting more consistent one burst kills. If anything, it detracted from it. So with being able to just do the rapid fire, you speed up that rate of fire, but you're still able to get those burst off. And the main reason I'm not really running any suppressors on here is because when you go ahead and use any of these suppressors, you're going to end up with a situation where you're kind of hurting your bullet velocity and you're not increasing range, and it just ends up being a little bit stuff you don't need. Is just getting added on. Maybe in an 8 attachment setup. Under barrel, I use the front grip. You could use the Field Agent. Again, like I said, it's kind of one of those things 50-50. And then the handle, for the same reason we've been talking about. You could drop shot with it, but you get the flinch resistant. Also, you get the aim down sight speed, so that you end up with a 245 ADS instead of a much slower one. So you can be very competitive, get quick on the draw, snap onto the targets, get the one burst kills. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully we see some changes to the meta very soon. Obviously the game barely came out, so they got to work on their data, but I would expect to see it in a week or two where they maybe change some things up, hopefully speed up the weapon leveling. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.